IMF මීටිං පැත්තිනෝ ලෝක රටවල් ඔක්කොම ඇවිල්ලා තිනවා වොෂින්ටන් DC වලට. ඉතින් ඒ වගේම මෙහිදී විශාල වශයෙන් රාජ්‍ය ඉහළ මට්ටමේ රාජතාන්ත්‍රික සම්බන්ධතාවන් සිදු වන ඇමතිවරු මැති ඇමතිවරු ගණනාවක් ඒ රටවල් ඇවිල්ලා තිනවා. අපි ගැන කතා වෙනවා කියලා කියන්නේ. එහි සිට අපි මේ මොහොතේදී සම්බන්ධ කරගන්නවා අද දෙරණ වෙනුවෙන් ඉන්දිවරිය යමුවත්. ඇය අරදී සිටින්නේ IMF සමාජිකයන් සමග එහි.
Hi, good morning, Chatra, and wonderful to connect with you and your audience on Derana Aruna TV, Derana, other Derana from Washington, D.C., where the annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank are taking place. Of course, 191 countries are represented at the highest level by their finance ministers, then central bank governors, their alternate governors, and finance ministry officials as well. From Sri Lanka, the central bank governor is here in Washington, D.C. Of course, the G7 held their finance ministers meeting, the G20, G24, as well as the Commonwealth finance ministers meeting, where they're deliberating, discussing how the world economy can move forward amidst the vulnerabilities that we face as trade tensions, geopolitical conflicts are seen to put risks and pressure on smaller economies like Sri Lanka. I'm from Sri Lanka.
Oh, sort of neighbors in.
So thank you once again for connecting with us, and I will bring to you more updates from Washington, D.C.
මෙතර මහ බැංකුව අධිපතිතුමා කරන ප්‍රකාශයත් ඒ වගේ මෙහිදී ක්‍රිස්ටිනා චෝජේවා මහත්මිය හමු වෙලා ප්‍රකාශයන් අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන කොට සවිස්තරාත්මකව ගෙනෙන්න.
Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, thank you very much for joining me here at the IMF headquarters. I know you're very busy, but what are you doing here with all the leaders? Why is this meeting and these sessions so important to us in Sri Lanka?
First of all, it's very happy to meet you here in person. It's a pleasure. In fact, these meetings in Washington, D.C. is a great opportunity for us to meet the finance ministers, governors of central banks, and also bilateral and multilateral basis other key representatives, as well as the investors, rating agencies, and the debt negotiation processes, other stakeholders. I think this is an opportunity for any country to meet all the other important stakeholders at one place within this week. In fact, I have been attending this meeting since 2006, each and every meeting so far. So I think I have been seeing that this is a great opportunity for Sri Lankan representatives to come and here meet with all the stakeholders, and it is great to be here. Like even media personalities also is a good opportunity.
Sri Lanka just completed the 5th review, and there have been certain recommendations. While the IMF commended Sri Lanka for the gains or the reforms that Sri Lanka has made, there are also concerns about how we're going to manage corruption, SOE reforms, and also questions about revenue-making mechanisms for the long term. So what is your focus now?
So what we achieved last week in Sri Lanka was we reached staff-level agreement for the completion of the 5th review. That was done. Then review will be completed, taken to the board in December, subject to certain kind of structural benchmarks. Important one is to submit the budget and get the budget passed for 2026 in the parliament after the third reading. That's the first important benchmark. So that in addition there are other important reforms like SOE reforms, the post-recovery pricing, and have a simple pricing mechanism to determine the post-recovery, and also socially fiscal-based, revenue-based fiscal consolidation. That is the bottom line of the program. And as also said, there are other two pillars. Important one is social safety net to ensure the most poorest people who have been affected worse in the economic crisis. So their support to those people under the program is one important pillar for the people in Sri Lanka. Other one is addressing corruption vulnerabilities and governance issues. It's another 5th pillar. The social one is for our program is these are new unconventional pillars of the program that we have having this year for this program. That's the important one. As a result, for the 5th review is basically completion. It's more than halfway. We have to complete 8 reviews. We are hoping to do it in completion somewhere in the middle of 27. Program will go until then, with almost $3 billion facility, and also almost more than half the almost half we will be getting money. In addition, what's important is not only the amount of money, but the reforms comes with the program, and also other support coming from the other agencies and bilateral and multilateral partners. Those are the very important support in addition to the IMF program. So this is why this is important for country like Sri Lanka.
Governor, we understand that the IMF program for any country is actually a prerequisite to set the tone for investors to stabilize an economy. But there's much more that countries individually have to do to ensure that there is long-term reform and progress. So, what are you pushing the Sri Lankan government, our government, to do in order to bring that kind of long-term reforms beyond the IMF program?
I think it's important for the government. It's not that we are pushing, it's the government. But I see this program has a strong ownership and commitment by the government to implement necessary important structural reforms. Especially medium to long term reforms are important for if for us to grow at say more than 4 to 5%, grow at 6-7%, without structural reforms implemented properly and timely manner, we won't be able to reach and increase the capacity of the country to grow at that high level. That is the most important one going forward, even beyond the program period. You continue to implement the necessary reform in terms of doing business, in terms of bringing more labor force participation by women, and also other important reforms in the addressing corruption vulnerabilities and making ESPC a place to attract foreign direct investment, continues to generate current account balances, surpluses, and build resource to a much more comfortable level and maintain low and stable inflation. And also, most importantly, because we went into a sovereign debt crisis, it's important for us to maintain sovereign debt sustainability beyond 2028 for us to be able to service all the foreign debt obligations for a medium to long term period. That's the most important reform. And we need to ensure we move in the right direction, and also we achieve growth rates which are much higher than the baseline which is needed to maintain the sustainability. If we are maintaining growth rates higher than the baseline, which means we will be reaching the sustainability much earlier than anticipated under the program.
Excellent. I just have one last question again about tax reforms also, because many feel that these tax reforms either hit the hardest, the most vulnerable, and there are still big corporates that need to come under the tax net. Yet there is so much progress and commendable efforts taken by the Sri Lankan government, according to organizations such as the IMF and World Bank. So how are you planning to bridge this gap? And also, are there any new packages that you're trying to work with as you hold bilateral meetings with other finance ministers and central bank governors?
I think one thing on the tax, basically, I'm central bank governor. Is not right for me to talk about specific tax reforms. But what I see, understanding on the tax reforms under the program is basically in terms of tax rates, the value-added tax, income tax, and corporate tax, and other taxes have now been implemented to a certain extent. The rates have come to a higher level. So what I can see going forward, my understanding with the fiscal authorities is that I don't see any further increases in rates, but we need to broaden the tax base, get a lot of other people into the tax net, so that we will have a much more fairer, as you said, fairer taxation system where poorer people share the lesser burden and richer people will share the fair share of the total tax collection. That has to be the direction going forward. For example, as you said, if you know that the Sri Lanka at the time of crisis, the indirect taxes of 80%, otherwise 20%, gradually now its indirect tax share is coming down. We need to move in that direction so that indirect taxes is a burden for the poor, more burden for the poor than the rich. So we need to bring down the share of indirect taxes and increase the share of the direct taxes. So that is the direction, as far as I can see, country should be moving, such as fiscal authorities. I'm sure this, not only this program going forward, with the new technology and digitalization, government should be able to broaden the tax base and then bring down the rates at some point to bring down the burden of relatively unfair burden on the low income people,
Right.
and have it fair burden for income people who earn higher incomes should be able to contribute more, so that support the economy.
Sure. I was asking you about any new deals or packages, agreements that you will work with finance ministers.
Basically, they take this opportunity to basically make sure we do it proper, and we have, for example, now the extra structuring. We still have to complete some of the agreements with some of the bilateral partners. So when we are here, we meet all these some of the ministers and discuss with them how we can expedite the implementation and completion of signing of this agreement, so that we can fully complete all the fully exercising process. It's a bilateral basis based on members by the end of this year. We have already important partners have already completed, but there are few more small bilateral treaties
Right.
they have to complete. So that we take this opportunity to meet all these representatives, finance ministers, and bank governors, for us to be able to complete all this process much faster than what we thought.
Sure. Thank you very much, Governor. I know you're in between crucial meetings with the highest level authorities, and in between, you agreed to meet with me to have this conversation. So I wish you all the very best in all your meetings and your bilateral communications with other countries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We were in discussion with Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, who is participating in the annual general meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, to talk to leaders from across the world who are represented at the highest level meetings for finance and economics the world has annually. Thank you very much for watching. We'll join you again with yet another exclusive from Washington, D.C.
අද දෙරණ YouTube නාලිකාව YouTube අද දෙරණ දැන්ම සබස්ක්‍රයිබ් කරන්න.